Hello, welcome back to the Three Orcs channel. I am David, and today we're going to do a big video on the entire Temple of Elemental Evil campaign story arc. This is for the epic campaign version of the Temple of Elemental Evil adventure module. A lot of DMs in the 80s and 90s, they ran the module from the pages, and they found it lacking because it turned it into a slog, a dungeon grinding slog that players eventually got bored with and didn't finish. Some DMs did expand upon the material greatly and successfully ran a great campaign. And over the years, a lot of those DMs shared their material with the rest of us, like on forums like Cannon Fire or Dragon's Foot, or on their own websites or blogs. I ran the Temple of Elemental Evil module in the 80s. I started playing in 78, believe it or not. I started my own D&D club in grade school, and then I moved it on to high school. And then from there, I was running conventions and working with TSR. But a lot of these things I'm going to talk about in this video, I've said many times in previous videos. One of the reasons why I keep repeating myself is because my channel's not that big, and often I'll get new viewers watching a video and they have no idea what I said in the past. And I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. The focus of this is the Temple of Elemental Evil module, the campaign. Now I'm talking about the epic campaign, the more of a sandbox version of the campaign, where you actually run the entire world, where you expand it. In the module, they gave you 4 locations in Nulb, and Gary Gygax stated, many interviews I've watched and heard him say about comments about this adventure and other modules like the G series and the D series and the Q1, that he stated that if he didn't have to hand off the Temple of Elemental Evil module and have somebody else finish it for him, and he were to write it and added all his notes from his campaign, how he intended it to be, it would be over 1,000 pages. And there's no way they could publish that. It would be, in the 80s, that was unheard of. That'd be equivalent to a Dungeon Master's Guide. In the DM notes, he did state quite plainly that he expected the Dungeon Master to expand the scope of the module, to build up Nulb, add those other locations there, as they did in the village of Hommlet. Because if you look at the village of Hommlet that he wrote, there's like 40-something locations that he keyed with NPCs, backstories, backgrounds, religion, loot, things like that. And so he expected Nulb to be treated that way as well. The focus of this campaign is 576 Common Year. Now, the activity of Nulb is at all-time high, because it's been 7 years since the Battle of the Emerald Meadows, and the forces of good from Thirandi, Luna, the Cron Hills, the Gnomes, the Elves from Selene, the Gnarly Forest organizations like the Gnarly Rangers and the Elves of the Gnarly, they all got together and put down the uprising of the Temple of Elemental Evil Hordes. And they took the temple and reduced it to rubble, and they sealed it. As far as we know, in this campaign, nobody knows it's on the rise again. In fact, the rage that Lareth is performing from the Moat House, he's doing that on purpose. He's making sure that his bandits that he recruits don't know what's really. His new recruits are kept to the upper levels in the Moat House. And there's a sergeant there that trains them and sends them out on missions to raid passing merchant caravans on the merchant roads of the Viscounty of Verbobonc. So all the NPCs in the campaign, all the leaderships, the nobles, the players, even the goot of the innkeepers and shop owners, they all assume that right now the only problems are the uprise of banditry on the roads and the political tensions between the gnomes and the humans of Verbobonc, because the gnomes feel that the human nobles are trying to steal their gem and silver mines. You have to remember that Greenway Valley is in the Viscounty of Verbobonc, and some of the known villages like Shir Knob and Ostfirk have known communities and known clans in them, and they also have their own gem and silver mines. So it's quite possible for a greedy, conniving noble from Verbobonc to try to annex those mines for themselves, to steal them, and that's what the gnomes are afraid of. So they keep the locations of these gem mines secret, hidden with illusion magic and natural terrain. D&D had a huge impact on my life. I started playing in grade school after Star Wars came out in 1977, where I started a gaming club that led to D&D. At the time, I would be found in a classroom, keeping my head low, buried in a fantasy book. The D&D Blue Box set changed and consumed my life. Quickly after that, I bought the AD&D Player's Handbook by Gary Gygax, which had a massive influence on me. I highly recommend these books to read. Rise of the Dungeon Master, Gary Gygax and the Creation of D&D by David Kushner and Corinne Sadmi. This graphic novel is a quick read, and it is a brief glimpse into the life of Gary Gygax, the creation of D&D, the controversy, and the effects that the game had on pulp culture and many lives that it touched. The next book is Empire of Imagination, Gary Gygax and the Birth of Dungeons & Dragons by Michael Whitwer. I found that this biography is a series of fictional vignettes about events in Gary Gygax's life, loosely connected by nods at context, which is more of a inspired by true events story than an actual biography. And the last one is Of Dice and Men, the story of Dungeons & Dragons and the people who play it by David Ewalt. This was a fun read about the history of Dungeons & Dragons. The author injects that some scenes from one of his own D&D campaign, which I liked, but sometimes it strayed a little bit too far from the subject and covered a lot other role-playing games. I was really happy to identify with a lot of the scenes in this book, and not just from playing the game. You can find my affiliate links down below. And they won't let anybody near them, because they're afraid they're going to be stolen. With the rise of the banditry, there's been attacks not only on passing human merchant caravans, traversing up and down the long road from the city of Verbobonc all the way down to Ostwerk, the Sleen border. They're also attacking the gnome caravans of gems, ores, and jewelry coming out of the Greenway Valley to the city of Verbobonc. And so both sides are pointing fingers at each other, and they're all thinking it's the rise of banditry, but they don't really know who's behind the banditry. They assume it's just natural, normal banditry with greedy humans out there that come from all walks of life that did not succeed, like the seventh cousin of something that didn't get any kind of training or a position in their house. They ended up, the only choices you have in life is to be a guard or join a militaristic organization or one of the churches, or just to be a construction worker or a farmer, like a serf. So there's not a lot of choices in medieval days, in D&D. If you don't have any money, you don't come from any family. Basically, that's why everybody's assuming that bands of brigands or bandits are raiding up and down the highways, attacking merchant caravans. Now that the gnomes are being attacked as well, they're being set up by the forces, the agents of the Temple of Elemental Evil. They're pulling strings behind the scenes. They're setting up raids to make it look like the bandits are being attacked by the mounted borderers of Verbobonc. The gnome caravans are being attacked by the mounted borderers, and the mounted borderers are also witnessing that the human caravans are being attacked by gnomes. A lot of these reports are going around. I created a news article, the Verbobonc News. I created several pages already that's on the Patreon. You can download if you want and take a look. You can even hand those out to your players in your campaign. A lot of these reports are coming out in that news. All the keyed areas of the entire county and the city have rumors, and the rumors all deal with this. Right from the very beginning, nobody knows that the Temple of Elemental Evil is on the rise, or they're behind anything. That all they know is it's been put down a long time ago, and they're done. They're just worried about monstrous excursions coming out of the Lortmill Mountains, the Gnarly Forest, or Welkwood. The players are the first on the scene to witness this themselves and start peeling back those layers of the onion to find out who's behind it all. So let's go ahead and start with a typical raid that the players will come across on the merchant roads of the Viscounty of Verbobonc. So let me go ahead and show you some articles so you can follow along with some artwork too. This is the Verbobonc Campaign Guide 576 Common Year. This is the World Anvil website that I use to post the entire campaign publicly. I follow the Wizards of the Coast fan content policy. Any articles I create for non-player characters, for organizations, for locations, towns, shops, whatever, is all published here for any Dungeon Master to use in their campaign. And the way I write these articles are more of an abbreviated version with a lot of bullet points, so it's easily accessible and referenceable at the table. Now, a lot of these articles, like the Druids of the Gnarly, they're great articles to read. Wonderful material, information a Dungeon Master should read, and I highly encourage it. But it's almost impossible to find the right information you need at the table while you're role-playing with your players. So that's why I take cues from the Old School Essentials, which is the best layout of any game out there on the market right now. And I run that a couple of years ago with my kids. So right now, you're looking at the screen, my splash screen of the Verbobonc Campaign Guide. Now, the very first thing you see on the splash screen is an interactive map of the Viscounty of Verbobonc and the surrounding lands. That red line you see is the border of the Viscounty. Any of these towns that are clickable, I've completed. That means you can click on it, you can look at the map, look at all the artwork, and all the locations in the city or the village, like shops, smithies, and military installations. So we're looking at Viscounty here. As you can see, if you zoom in on Hommlet, the long road connects the Viscounty from Verbobonc up north. It goes south. There's the high road. It actually starts off as named as a high road, but it turns into the long road as you get past Verbobonc. Then you get to Sinega Valley, which I need to rename. Greyhawk expanded, renamed it Nib's Rest. That's a great name. So anyway, Verbobonc is completely detailed out with its own maps and locations and lore, and so is Sienna Valley. As the players travel through here along the Nib's Run, which is that river, or along the long road, you can actually pass through these towns and roleplay there and stay the night, get rumors, hire henchmen, all the normal stuff. And as you make your way southeast along the end of the Nib's Run, you finally come into Hommlet. Hommlet's fully detailed out, fully keyed as well. You can go there and explore it and use all the new artwork and all the locations and dialogue that I wrote for all the NPCs. When I first start my campaign, as they make their way to Hommlet, I usually hit them with a raid, a bandit raid. So that way kicks off the peeling of the onion of what's going on in the campaign. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to come across raiders, and they're sourced from the Moat House. That's where they're from. So Lareth, the commander of the Moat House, he works for the High Temple, the Upper Temple. Now there's the Upper Temple, and there's 4 minor temples. There's the Fire, Earth, Water, and Air. And they all have their own leaders. But Lareth is the favored one. He's Lareth the Beautiful, favored by the Greater Temple. He works for Hendrik and Shenshak, and they went ahead and sent him to the Moat House to establish an outpost there to bring in loot, coin, and slaves, prisoners. And so he sends his bandits out to raid these lands in the area. And that's the first thing that the players in the campaign will come across, this raid. So that's where the initial information comes from. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Moat House real quick. I clicked on the village of Hommlet, and as an example, I'll show you what this means. That's the splash screen for the village. Everything you need to know about the village is on the splash screen. The history, the geography, society, culture, government and laws, the politics, the religion, the military, the key military figures, the current events. All the NPCs have links to their articles. That way you have more information and artwork for each NPC and some dialogue usually. As I scroll down, you got current events. The current events consist of the rise of banditry. The merchant roads around Hommlet have seen a surge of bandit attacks, disrupting the raid and instilling fear among the travelers. This increases of criminal activity coincides with the withdrawal of the mounted borderers, the patrols, and the Viscounty troops, leaving the village mostly vulnerable. Now, the mounted borderers have their own article, and if I put my cursor over it, it pops up a mini article, and you can quickly reference what that's all about by scrolling through it. But you don't get the full article here because it only shows you the main article, not the sidebars or the extra artwork. If you really want to read the full article, you can scroll to the bottom and click on Read Full Article, and it'll pop up a whole other article on a tab on your screen. So another thing about the politics, I see this campaign as Game of Thrones meets the Temple of Elemental Evil. The politics of the land, you got the Viscount, and he's got political issues with Luna and Ferrandi and the lords of the land, and the lords are up to no good a lot of times because they're greedy and trying to take advantage of the gnomes. But also, you have the gnome relation tensions, which is a political tension between the Verbobonc's human nobles and the gnome communities. He gave the order to withdraw the mounted borderers from patrolling the Cron Hills, the southern borders of the Greenway Valley. And the gnomes really depended upon this to protect their caravans. Now the mounted borderers are no longer doing this, and the gnomes are upset. They're pissed. And they're pointing fingers at the lords that they're trying to steal their silver and gem mines. And it's a really bad situation right now. So the withdrawal of the mounted borderers is a big critical issue right now, and all the merchants and all the townfolk will complain about this. Everybody knows about this, and so that means there is a rise in banditry because there's no more patrols out there and mounted borderers. Just the local town guards. Basically, the farms are suffering from bandit raids, and the merchants are considered arming themselves. And some are even calling for increased military intervention to restore order and security. There's a lot of that going on, too, politically, and a cause and effect. And the community response is that the villagers are led by Byrne and Rufus. They're taking steps to address this challenge. Their efforts to bolster the militia and secure trade routes and mediate between conflicting factions are underway, demonstrating the resilience and the unity of Hommlet. So there's a lot of confusion going on. Anything the players do in the campaign, if they get raided, they get jumped, an ambush, and they capture these bandits, or bring in heads at least, and they get to Hommlet and present them to Rufus or Byrne or the village elder or the captain of the militia, which is Elmo's father, they can get rewarded. I usually offer like 5 gold a head. Also, the campaign moves along quite nicely if they're able to capture one of these bandits and find out some information. I keyed this campaign so well that I know what every single bandit is doing, what he's thinking, what their plans are, who his superiors are, and what they're up to. So I know exactly what to tell the players if they question any bandit in the entire organization. That means they'll move the campaign farther. Also, I'll create letters and documents that certain leaders have. That way they can get physical evidence. I usually print them up and hand it to the players if they loot Lareth's diary and all his contracts and messages from the Greater Temple. Okay, so on the right-hand side is what I was talking about, the sidebar. Up to the top here is the actual interactive map of Hommlet that you can scroll around. All those numbers are clickable to their articles. And then if you scroll down, is a static picture of a map. This map was from Blendo, and I got his permission to use it in our website. So he's pretty happy to see this. The notable figures here on the right list all the leaders of the village with their own clickable links, so you can look them up. Like Lord Byrne, it's all about him, his background, motivations, and relationships. But no artwork, because I usually put all the artwork in the right-hand side column. You have to open up the whole article to see everything. A lot of dialogue over there, too, sometimes. The druid Jarro Ashtaff is one of them, of the Grove. Adventure points of interest, like the Mohouse, Temple of Evil, and the Bandit Hideout. Below that is a whole sub-article called Quests and Rumors. Hommlet's local side quest is a PDF I created for the DM's Guild. You can go there and buy it as a PDF. The difference between seeing the information on this website for free or buying the PDF is that I cleaned it up and added more artwork. I was very careful with the details to make sure it all fit on the PDF just right with the accurate pinpoint information to use in the campaign. I paid more. I took this information, I cleaned it up greatly, and I added stuff that might have been missing and cleaned up the artwork and things like that. But that's not the only reason to get the PDF. PDF is also great to have on your computer or tablet or laptop because you don't have to be online. You can use it at the gaming table without being connected to the internet. You can also use it for marking up for your own notes or use it as a session report. Below that is a whole list of all the locations separately besides the map. So you can click on these locations on the interactive map, or you can just come to this list on the right and click on the location you're looking for. Like the Greenway Farmstead, you put the cursor over it and you see the article. I even have spoilers shown on this pop-up. You don't have to look at the full article. So if I click on show spoiler, look at that. It pops up with more information. The idea behind this website is I try to create it player-friendly as possible and hide the DM information behind these spoilers. So you're really going to tell the players not to click on those spoilers so they don't give away the campaign. Because they're going to find out secrets they should not know. And it'll spoil it for everybody. Knows that. Rogan is clear that he works under Ostrich, Sergeant Ostrich in the Mohouse. And he knows that Ostrich, he knows a little of the broader cult structure of Lareth's grander plans. Ostrich handles all the deeper communications with the Mohouse. The stolen loot location claims that it's hidden in the rubble nearby. They're talking about the rubble in the Mohouse. And I also add extras, like possible leads for the adventurers you could follow up with. You could follow Rogan's directions to the farm, reveal further clues. It shouldn't be a farm, it should be more of a cottage. I'm going to reword that as well, because that doesn't match the article I wrote today. That will reveal more clues about the Mohouse and the Bandit's operations. He also will reveal the secret tunnels that's hidden to transport goods into the Mohouse undetected. In the bottom of the Mohouse is an exit at the lower levels that Lareth and his men use. That's where the materials come and go. So they don't come through the front doors of the Mohouse. That's not how the loot gets there, or the prisoners. They actually take all that loot and all the prisoners to that secret entrance outside the Mohouse, past Lareth's area, and into where they store this stuff. And so he knows some of that stuff. If players question him, he'll be able to give them that information. So if you look on the right, I have more dialogue, and then we have a detailed description of Rogenfeld, his equipment, his stat block, because you're going to have to fight him, and the overseer of the raids and recruitment on the right. It talks about Osred Birch, so that we know a little bit about him. And then below that is the brigands themselves that he's using for the raid. And it's their description, their weapons, and their stat block. That way you can have a full-out battle. It's all ready to go right here. Now, the stat blocks in my website is kind of vague. I try to condense it as much as possible to save space. I don't try to adhere to a specific rule set. I just keep it as general as possible because any DM can use any stat block and run the game. It's not rocket science. It's super easy if you have a lot of experience. But I think this stat block is good enough for almost any DM to use. If you don't feel confident about it, all you got to do is research or rewrite it in your own DM notes before the battle. That way you'll be fully prepared. Because most new DMs wouldn't know what all these skills were anyway, because you'd probably have to do some preparation just to understand what that skill does. I also put in the tactics they use and description of what the bandits look like. So that's all part of the local side quest for Hommlet. And then down below is that final picture of one of the bandits up on his platform that he uses as a firing platform for his crossbow. This is all a great, wonderful encounter to find out what the bandits are up to from the very beginning. So what the player's going to find out about this? What are the players going to learn about this after this encounter? They're going to learn that there's probably a secret entrance into the Moe House. That's where all the loot and prisoners go. There's also this cottage at the edge of the swamp that's used as a staging area. It's possible the players might learn that. And that's about it. That's all that this person would know. That and also that he has a sergeant that he reports to. And you could probably tell the players how many men are in the organization. And usually I'll say 20. It's over a dozen, right? Because this encounter has 6 bandits and Rogan, I think. So, and we know that there's 12 more bandits in the upper. Well, and we do know there's about 8 more bandits in the upper story of the Moe House. And of course, there's a lot more bandits down below that he would not know about. Because you have to prove yourself at the Moe House. When you first get recruited as a bandit by Osrid, they train you, then they finally trust you enough to send you on raids. You're unaware of any of the organization down below in the Moe House, of Loreth and his men and what they're up to, why they're even doing this. They will not give you that information. So the base bandit would not know nothing. All he knows there's Osrid and Rogan and the upper tower. That's all they know. And so the players won't learn much from them. Basically, the bandits will be self-serving and self-absorbed and just promise and whine and complain that they'll never do it again. And they were going hungry and complained that there's no jobs and they had no choice. So that's all they're going to learn from regular bandits. But Rogan knows a few more things. So they're going to learn a little bit from him. Okay, so now that's behind us. They go to town. And as you know, Hommlet's fully keyed. So let's go ahead back there and take a look. So back to Hommlet here. I'll scroll down to the locations. On the right, okay. Now, the government figures are important. The government figures are the elder of the village, Kentor Sr. He's the village leader. There's Lord Byrne, Lord Rufus. They're not Lord in the original T1 module because it hasn't happened yet. In the Living Greyhawk series, which is a later timeline, 594 Common Year and up, they were made lords, and this is their own. They were given this castle was built, and they were given this domain. I kept it lord just because I know a lot of dungeon masters don't run this campaign in 576 Common Year, but just as a heads up, you don't have to call him lord if you're running it as the standard timeline for running the Temple of Elemental Evil. There's Canon Turgeon of St. Cuthbert, and there's the druid Jaro Ashstaff of the Grove, and the Melissa Captain Zeb Fletcher, which is Elmo's father, and also the father of Otis in Nulb. And then there's Elmo. So they're all on the government. They are all on the village council. So as the players become more successful and they start doing great things and capturing more bandits, they're going to be recognized as very successful and competent adventurers, and they're going to be turned to for more and more help. So when they first get to town, they're going to talk to Gundagoot and get some rumors about the bandits in the area. That's the first thing that usually happens in any campaign. The Gundagoot complains or talks about the bandits. And the merchants are all worried about it, and you even hear the merchants complaining about it while they're drinking their ale. And then Gundagoot will suggest you go talk to Jaru or Turgeon, because they know more about the bandit activities. And he'll probably also mention Taman's Brewery was hijacked recently, and 4 kegs of ale has gone missing. And so he'll probably also recommend going there to talk to Taman. Virgil Taman. I'm just going by memory here. Sorry. So the players will end up going to probably the next day after spending the night and dealing with the riffraff of this inn. You know, the NPCs here that are possible henchmen that they could recruit. After dealing with all that, usually a player will go to talk to Joru and he'll give his opinion. And you go to that article here on the website and there's some dialogue there and description and what he knows. And he'll probably direct them to the moat house. Go talk to the Canon Turgeon of the St. Cuthbert and he'll say the same thing, that he thinks that the banditry is holed up at the moat house. And he suggests the players go investigate that. He'll suggest you could talk to Virgil Cayman because his kegs of ale was stolen and looted from a merchant caravan heading out of Hommlet towards the city of Verbobonc, and he lost 4 kegs of ale, and he's promising a reward for them back. And Canon Turgeon suggests you go talk to him and see if there's any clues to help them in their investigation of these bandits. So with all that, the players are ready to go investigate the moat house. So when they get to the moat house, there's some things that could happen with the non-player characters that decide to recruit to come with them from the Welcome Wentz. Now, most likely, they'll probably get the wizard and maybe the thief. Sometimes they'll take on Zert or the fighter and monk, but usually they don't. But in either case, as you know, if you read their articles and the side quests, they might be followed. And Zert especially. So Zert is in league with the traders across the street, he's a spy for the Temple of Elemental Evil, and they all report to the Temple Courier in the area that coordinates activities between the traders, the saboteur over at the castle construction site, and Zert, and also with Lareth at the moat house. So there's a lot of things to discover, but we know that the players probably will not discover hardly any of that when they first get to the town. They haven't even gotten to the moat house yet. So when they do get to the moat house, they're going to encounter those bandits upstairs. Possibly. Or they might go down below if they're dumb. And if they're unlucky and stupid enough to do it, they might go down below in that secret entrance to the moat house, what they learned from the bandits. But let's say they go to the upper levels first, which is wise, and I suggest DMs steer them in that direction, because we know that the moat house is scaled and geared for first level characters at the top half. So the players get up there and they vanquish the bandits and they capture a few and they interrogate the leader there and the sergeant, and they find out more information. He knows more stuff. So he knows about Lareth and his organization, and they'll learn that his role and duty is to recruit bandits and organize their raids out in the far away in the Viscounty. And so they'll learn that his master and more men are down below. That's when they learn that it's a greater organization behind these bandits. They'll learn that. So it's possible my players went back to town after that, so they could level up. And they reported they took the prisoners with them, and they went back to town and turned them into Bern and Rufus. So Bern and Rufus interrogated them, found out pretty much the same information, and they got their heads together and they recommended the players go back there and find out what this greater organization is down below. And then the players might follow up going through the secret entrance. At this point, the players aren't high enough level. So let me talk about that real quick. I've said it many times before, but the moat house is not really for first level characters. The upper half is, yes. But they need to have any kind of success against Lareth and his men down below. They need to be at third level. And that's not going to happen. There's not enough experience points there to get to third level. So what I do is I have them go on other quests and adventures and dungeons before they get to the village of Hommlet. I start my players at the city of Verbobonc, and I have a noble recruit them to go after some treasure, go to another dungeon. So by the time they do get to the village of Hommlet, they're all second level. And then by the time they get down to Lareth below, they're all third level. They still might not win the fight, but at least they're not going to get slaughtered and die. But it's so easy to run from that fight. Just run out the secret exit. They just run for it. Usually they'll throw a vial of flaming oil to block the passage and run. That's usually what happens. So basically, if they do interrogate any of those bandits down below, they'll learn more. And that's when they'll find out the staging area of that cottage on the west side of the marsh along the high road. Also, they're going to hear about that the loot and the prisoners and coin are taken north up the high road to this hunting cabin, which is outside of Nulb. And then that was taken by another NPC there into the secret tunnel. So these bandits, Lars bandits, never get past that point. They have never been past that cabin that the NPCs there take over from there. And so these are layers of the onion. Now also they're going to learn that there's another bandit group out there. And sometimes they work with them. They coordinate things with them. And that's the Hanged Men, Nalen's men. Nalen has a big organization of bandits, and they're lethal. They have their own base out near Nulb called the Rock Gardens. And they're very dangerous as well. And they're up to other things, but it's possible to cross them as well. And they bring their loot and slaves to the cabin as well to get that stuff into the Temple of Elemental Evil. You can't just trot in a bunch of slaves handcuffed to the front doors of the Temple of Elemental Evil. You have to go through that tower, Valorous Tower, and it's quite visible up top. And they're trying to keep things down low. So back to the original idea behind this, what's going on in the campaign. Now, the Temple of Elemental Evil forces are on the rise, right? They have agents out in the field. They're trying to make sure that they're trying to bring in resources and slaves and coin and food without tipping off the authorities in the area. Now, the mayor of Nulb is working with them, of course, like most of the town is. No, that's not the problem. The problem is you got gnarly rangers, and you also have agents of good like Otis in town keeping an eye out. And so they're trying to keep things low key because they don't want to give away before they're ready. Because if they're found out by nobles of Verbobonc or the Viscount himself before they're ready, they'll just send in forces, or the Circle of Eight will come in and just wipe them all out. They'll be over, gone. And so they're trying to bide time to build up their forces, to build up their army and their powers before that happens. And so that players can take advantage of that. And so basically that's why that hunting cabin is there. They get the materials and slaves into the Temple of Elemental Evil without being discovered too early in the campaign. And the players will take some while to figure this out, because just because you get to these locations doesn't mean you're going to find out everything about it. Depends how good the players are and what they do. And then when they finally get to Nulb, that's a whole nother can of worms. So Nulb is a hive of scum and villainy, and that's where basically the base is for all the pirates and all the bandits in the area, and also the Temple of Elemental Evil agents. And it's also agents of good there too. So the pirates, they sail up and down the Emeraldi's Run and the Velverdiver River, and they perform piracy on the waters against merchant ships. And they bring in loot and slaves from the water to the docks at Nulb and then into town. And then it finds its way into the Temple of Elemental Evil. That's how they support the temple. And a few of these crews directly work with the slave trade in the Wild Coast. Like Captain Prelos. He's super dangerous and lethal. And him and his crew, they deliver slaves all the time. That's what they do. So in Nulb, I detailed like 6 crews of NPCs and their activities and background and lore and things like that. So they can all be in play. And besides them, there's the bandits of the Hanged Men, and then there's Laris bandits. And there's also some small bandit crews hanging out at the inn and taverns, and they're looking for mischief too, but they're not big organizations. They're just small band of bandits, and they could be a thorn. They could be a problem. And there's also other mercenaries looking for work too, of course. Now, Nulb is almost done. I'm still working on the map. But all the locations in Nulb, like 55 locations, they're all keyed already with artwork, dialogue, stat blocks, everything. That's ready to go for a Dungeon Master to run Nulb. But you really need that new map. Now, I'm keying the map using that old map that you'll find online that had numbers on it, 1 through 55, 1 through 54. And those are the same numbers I'm using for my key. So you can use that map temporarily for now while you're using my website to key those locations in. This video has gone on. Okay, so this video has gone on long enough about the activities of the bandits and the logistics behind it all. This is just to give you an overview of how the bandits are supporting the Temple of Elemental Evil and what they're up to and what the players can discover. And as you'll see, if you go to these locations on my website, you'll see these locations. And let me show you another one here. So we're going to So this is the cottage I was talking about previously. Now, as you see this artwork for it on the right-hand side, that's what the cottage looks like. It's right at the edge of the fence. And that white area is flavor text that you can read to the players as they first arrive there. And it makes it look creepy and interesting and scary. And after that, it fully details out the staging base, what this is all about. the exterior features, the interior features. I outlined the pens, the bandit camp. So basically there's the cottage, and then the bandits also set up hodgepodge of several tents to stay in, depending on when the bandits are there or not, because there's not enough room in the cottage for all the bandits to sleep in. So the normal bandits will sleep in tents outside. Around the backside are prisoner pens, and they have the 4 gnolls guarding those pens. And if you scroll down to the right, that's who Damon looks like. He's the owner. He used to be a druid, and he got recruited by Lareth for the Temple of Elemental Evil, the Elder Elemental God. And so he's a fallen druid. He was 3rd level. And everything about him is there. And then there's the 4 gnolls are keyed with their stat block. And then there's a picture right here on the right of the gnolls hanging out at the back of the cottage, looking over the prison pens. And then as you scroll to the very bottom, sure enough, there's spoilers. So players should not read this article at all. I usually keep most articles fresh enough and vague enough for any player to read, but this particular article they shouldn't even look at. But as force of habit, I put spoilers in here. So the secrets are the hidden cellar, his fears, and the communications they use here. And there's adventuring hooks. I usually put adventuring hooks in a lot of these articles to help the Dungeon Master, expand even more what I've already done, which is crazy. There could be a rescue mission, like maybe you can rescue a captured merchant or a noble held hostage, and maybe your players know about this and they were tasked to find this prisoner or relative. Ambush at the cottage. The players could stumble upon the cottage during a raid, facing gnoll guards and flying and the fleeing. They could be facing gnoll guards and the fleeing Damon, the ex-druid. And then another spoiler is his hidden treasure stash. I usually keep all treasure in the spoiler, that way players won't accidentally see it. But he does have a hidden area where he keeps all his goods. He's got a +1 dagger, and he's got a journal and gemstones and things like that. So I got artwork for you to show the players and all the stat blocks and how the bandits use this cabin for staging. Then real quick, we'll look at the hunting cabin. You can also, in the top left-hand corner in the search area, you can just type in words here to find an article you're looking for too. At least now you know the full extent of the activities of the bandits and what they're doing with all that loot and those prisoners and where they're going. So this will help flush the campaign out and bring it to life and expand it greatly and add more layer and depth to the campaign. So I hope you like what you've seen. If you want to support me further, please come to my Patreon. A lot of my stuff is free on my Patreon, to support your campaign. But any of the higher resolution artwork or maps that I make, that's only available to the members only. On the Patreon, I create a lot of high value articles and artwork for the campaign. And not just for the Temple of Elemental Evil campaign, but also for the B2 Keep in the Borderlands, and also for Dolmenwood, old school essentials. And this stuff is very valuable for any Dungeon Master in any campaign. I hope you liked what you've seen so far, and you're excited to run this campaign as much as I have. So tell me, do you think this detailed information would be valuable in your campaign? Will it help you bring it to life? Will it help you expand it even more and have your players get more engaged to find out what's going to happen and what's happening behind the scenes and peeling those layers of the onion?
Did you enjoy video? Consider tossing support on my Patreon. It best way to support orcs. If you would like to see more content, subscribe and post comments below. It better not be bad.
Please, I'd like to hear what you did in your campaign below, how you expanded your campaign and made it more interesting. I'd like to hear it. I hope you had a good time watching this video and your players had as good a time as my players have in the past running this Temple of Elemental Evil campaign. May your dice ever roll favorable.